WillieGene talking, WillieGene squawking, WillieGene telling the deal. WillieGene mocking, WillieGene blocking, WillieGene keeping it real.
All right, hey everybody, it's Will here. I wanted to tell you the Mountain View story, and I did go to court, and of course, kicked out the van window and got to Mountain View. And when I got to Mountain View, it was crazy. A huge complex. They also have $1 million fence. Nobody can escape there. Not saying it can't be done. I had a friend who did escape there once. Uh, he took the rec ladder and was able, at that time, they didn't have it mounted to the pole. Uh, eventually they got chains and put locks on it and kind of mounted it into the wood so nobody could get it out real easily. Uh, but a friend of mine and his friend had put it against the $1 million fence and jumped over. But it's the worst thing you want to do in Mountain View. When they catch you running from Mountain View, they beat the shit out of you. When my friend come back, I didn't see him for a month. He was, black eyes, bruised ribs. They had beat him up, kicked him while he was down, tased him, pepper sprayed him, pretty much everything that they could do. Um, but yeah, so there was a rec center there too. I'll tell you about that. But when I first got there, it's a huge complex. They name all the complex names after Army names like Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta. Uh, Alpha and Bravo, Alpha 1, Bravo 1, or Alpha 1 and 2, Bravo 1 and 2, Charlie 1 and 2, and Delta 1 and 2. And there was a cafeteria, there was a school, there was an art class, a math class, a cooking class, of course, science, social studies, and there was a gym and teachers for all those classrooms. And there was also, of course, the rec center, and there were areas. Delta was classification. So Delta 1 and 2 is where you first go when you get there. You go to classification in almost every place. That's almost every group home. That's every jail. Every jail you go to class, uh, sometimes for a month, sometimes for 2 weeks, sometimes for a week, sometimes for a couple of days. Sometimes depending on if you know somebody there, if you've been there before, or anything like that too. So when you go to Mountain View, you get classed, and this was in 2001. The reason I know it was in 2001 is because 9/11 happened. And when that happened, I know for sure I was in Mountain View sitting on a blue foam chair. That's the chairs they had there, were big square blue foam chairs that connected. And, that way they didn't tear up real easy or break, especially with a whole bunch of rough boys and things. Um, and to give you an idea, when you go to Delta, there are, if I'm correct, something like 20 rooms in each tier. So if it's Delta 1, there's 20 rooms. Delta 2, there's 20 rooms. These are single rooms, individual rooms. You don't roommate in this place. Um, you know, they did give you certain things. You got to spend $5 a week on hygiene and $3 a week on candy. You could order stuff like soda pops or candy bars or things like that. And then you could also trade each other. Now, you couldn't have candy in your cell or anything or in your room. You had to eat what you ordered for the week. You had to eat that right then. And you had like maybe, 2 to 3 hours altogether. Usually I think it was less than that. Like they would give it to you and let everybody watch a movie. And by the time the movie was over, you're supposed to be done. So we would find ways to sneak them, take a pack of Skittles, and while the guard ain't looking, just chuck them to get them underneath the door so that later on you can grab them from that person. Or if you had a door that was behind you and you could slide it that quick into your own room, you was good to go, you know. Um, Also, no, it's probably the first place that I started tattooing little things with staples and pencils and a small piece of string and making ink from soot and just putting stupid things on myself that eventually I covered up anyways. Um, but yeah, so when I went to Delta and I was in classification, uh, I was hella nervous. I knew I was going to have to be there till I was 19. And having a determinate sentence meant that no matter what I did, it wouldn't change anything. I had to stay there for that length of time no matter what, even if I didn't get write ups or things like that. So, um, in Delta, when I first got there, that was the first fight I got into in Delta. And a boy happened to. I'll tell you the story, okay? So, me and a buddy of mine, and I don't know how else to put you in the state of mind. I've told you before that where I'm from, it's a lot different. It's a lot of white people and a lot of black people, but it feels like it's half and half. And then in the group home, like in Mountain View itself, it it's overwhelmingly a majority of black people. You know what I mean? And that's not an issue to me because I grew up around people, so I didn't look at it that way. But it did make differences in the activities that's going on around you. And if you're not in if you're not in tune with everybody around you, then things could be going on, or you could get snoozed, or a gang could stab you up or anything. Because there, it was for the first time that I was introduced to like for real gangs, like not kitty gangs and cutting up and kidding around and burglarizing or robbing somebody or stealing stuff from cars or things like that. I'm talking about people who genuinely want to stab each other over the fact that they don't agree with their politics in between individuals. And it's also the first time in my life I learned to I mean, I didn't learn fully, but I did learn to try to keep politics and things like that out of my own business. I never joined a gang, was affiliated with gangs or anything like that. Uh, and I always just kind of got along with everybody that I could, as many people as I could. I always felt like the more people that you got along with and were friendly with, they come back and you help others, they'll help you. Even in situations like that, there's a lot of good people, and there are bad people, but the majority are good people just trying to get their programs done and things. So me and the homie was playing spades, and me and the homie had a way of passing each other signals signals in a sense to know how to set people pretty easily. Like, we're underbidding, they're pushing a little bit harder than they need to. They go 7 instead of 6. You know, we're hitting 8 all day. They're set and they're getting mad and getting mad. So, you know, uh, it ends up instigating, and the boy looks at me and tells me that me and dude can't run 3 dimes in a row. And dimes in spade means wheels. It's like getting 10 books. There's 13 books in spades. There's 13 cards in each player's hand. Spades are the trump. They're the ones that can take everything. The highest spade's the beast. Run down to the 2. But at the end of the day, 13 books, 13 cards in everybody's hands. And if you're pretty bright. You can remember what's even been played. And I know people in jail that were playing pinochle and they're counting. They're telling me I've got a queen of clubs in my hand on my last card. They know what all four people, the other three playing with them, they know exactly what cards they got in their hands. And it's just by being smart and counting, kind of like blackjack, counting cards and understanding how many, let's just not get into that. That's a longer story. But at the end of the day, we run 3 10s. Uh, if you run a dime and you call run a dime, you score 200. And it's pretty much game, especially if you're going to like 500 or 450 or 250 or anything. So the boy gets up and he puts his finger on my head and he pushes it back. And he did that because he had got up and told me, he said, "Man, you're cheating." And I was like, "Dude, we ain't cheating. We just, we're just good at playing the game." And he put his finger on my head like that and told me to think about it. And when he did, it was on. And, we fought for a little bit. And a little bit in this sense is kind of like maybe 15, 20 seconds. But in 15 and 20 seconds in fighting, it really don't feel like 15, 20 seconds. It feels like maybe, a minute every 15 seconds. So uh, a lot longer. And eventually, the guards come break us up and things. And then, that sustained me for a while there because people knew that I'd fight. And so they ain't going to test you as much if you go in there and, somebody says something and you just start fighting. They at least are a little bit more respectful with, how they treat you. They know that at least you'll go and you'll fight. Even if you don't win, at least they know you'll fight. Okay. So, that's the first time I ever drew portraits of people. Uh, I started drawing portraits of people because of Mountain View, because I had a great art teacher there that would help me, and she kind of used my artistic skill and put it to use on something. And I mean, I did fairly well on those things. I mean, not Picasso or anything. Don't get it twisted, but you know, uh, pretty average, pretty decently at some sense. But at Mountain View, it was crazy too. And when I say we had a rec yard where you could climb up a lightning pole and not a lightning pole, but a light pole, and then you stood on top of the light pole with both your feet, and out probably 10 foot, or maybe not 10 foot, maybe like 6 foot out, was a bar 30 foot in the air. And if you could put your feet against that and you could jump out there and grab it, and you could do some pull ups on it, the person who did the most amount of pull ups would win a pizza party with the gym coach there. And the gym coach name was Chuck, and he was crazy, uh, crazy good at horseshoes. And what he'd do is he'd bet you on horseshoes that if you threw the horseshoes and you beat him, then he would buy you a Coke. He'd buy you a soda pop, and it'd bring it to school the next day. You'd be able to have it, and all the guards and everybody was cool like that with him and stuff. And he did things like that. I did try to jump to grab that pole once, and I missed it. Um, I went up on the second time. They had a big tree stump all the way across too that you just walked across. But you could do flips on it and things like that if you had the guts. Now, I did have the guts to do, front flips and back handsprings on that. But we also had a harness on us and things like that. So it's a lot less risky once you try to do that jump and you miss it and you fall and the rope catches you. Then you're a lot less scared of falling from that rope and stuff. But the fence I was talking about, the $1 million fence, it kind of could have been like this and then went over. So like if you were on the inside, it went this way. So the fence was like up like this at an angle, like that right there. So when a person crawled, they couldn't crawl up it because they'd just go back on themselves. So they took that ladder and put it against it and climbed out top. It's the only time it ever happened. It never happened again. I don't know if any kids that's escaped Mountain View other than them. Uh, and the reason I say that now, there have been cases where single individuals sometimes, are able to get out through trash or things like that. But for the most part, they don't have them occurrences happen there like that. Now, I was there for a while, and after Delta and after classification for 2 weeks, then I went to Alpha 2. And in Alpha 2, there was a ton of different characters there, different individuals, some gang members of certain gangs, some of different gangs. They try to keep that under control as much as possible, but it is what it is. It's the king of the snooze. That's what Mountain View is. The king of the snooze. I watched this boy named Tico. We would have these school lines that you'd have to walk into, and you'd have to stay in line, and it'd be like sometimes 15 deep for the class, but sometimes 20 deep. But you'd have a guard, and y'all be following one behind another and things. And out of nowhere, the classroom would be coming down this way, the classroom would be going up this way. And somebody would jump out of line and just blah, just snooze somebody, boom, right in their jaw. And it happened a lot, all the time. I mean, that's how they fought each other. You got to remember, we're in different places. And Charlie, too, was a place you went for getting in fights, for doing messed up stuff. You have to be there sometimes for 2 weeks, sometimes for a month, things like that. And I do remember some good things there. There was a guard there that was super nice to me, maybe too nice. You got to remember, though, I was 18. I went there, 20 days. Well, maybe 18 days by then, before I turned 18. So by the time I was there and went to my regular, I was already 18 years old. And she was a little older, probably 28, 30, something like that. And she used to bring me clothes, and she used to take some of my clothes home with her. And I always thought that was kind of cool, I guess. But I learned to braid there. I braided people's hair just to swap for, hygiene stuff, or, sometimes you braid somebody's hair and they give you like 2-3 items that week extra. And since you could only order $3 of candy and $3 of hygiene, if you could make extra, then you could keep other people's extra, you know what I mean? And you could really end up with like 10, 15 items. Or if somebody bought it as an item, they pay back too, and that person, just like the store. I ended up getting in a lot of shit there too, though. Um, you know, it was good for a long time. I mean, maybe like 5 months went by with Breeze, and I got to learn a lot of things there. And like I said, I had an art class there, and then we had the gym there, and used to watch people play basketball all day. That's what they did, especially right after school and things like that. And I was with Heather at that time, and I had been with Heather for a while, and she ended up doing some foul shit, and I did some foul shit too. And one of my homies told me about it, which was important to me because it shows you what true friends do. If they see somebody do something foul, then they turn around and tell you and keep it real with you. Then it just shows you a true friend, and she'll always be my friend. So and of course Heather's my friend too, and she'll always be my friend until I'm dead. Um, but yeah, I mean, I was going through some shit in there because of that, and I ended up, man. I fucked up. I saw an alphabet wrote in like old English letters, and I was like, man, that's cool. That looks cool as shit, because they looked cool. I didn't know it was gang writing. You know what I'm saying? Not at that time. I wasn't. I didn't. I knew what some stuff looked like, but not that, you know. Well, I was in my room and I took that shit out the trash and I was just, writing down the alphabet, not exactly like it was, but like I was writing like names with it and using the letters and names in a drawing. And this one dude comes up to me and he's like, "Man, what you doing?" And I was like, nothing, man. I'm just drawing his name. It's my name. I'm drawing it." He's like, "Who you affiliated with?" I was like, "Nobody, bro." And he ends up getting. I showed him the papers that I had. He ends up getting them papers, and it it messed up everything because he ended up being like the opposite. So it might have been the Crips literature that I had given to I I don't know, the Bloods or something, like it was a vice versa like that. Except it might have been like a vice lord's writings and and a GD. I'm not sure. I wasn't ever real into that, so I didn't understand what was going on. But it ended up switching opposite hands like that, and then my name gets thrown into the mix of like giving their literature to another. Like they had assumed I had came in and like underdog that shit, and then went and gave it to him to get like initiated or something, which wasn't true at all. Uh, so for the last like 3 months there, my life was hell. It was every day I had to fight. When I say every day, I mean every day. Every day for probably 3 months, for 90 days. Every day I knew, when I went to the cafeteria to eat super fast, get it done as quick as possible, keep my eyes in the back of my head, keep my hand balled up, keep it on my lap, and just sit back and watch everybody and make sure, because I know at some point today I'm going to get in a fight. It just depends on how long and who with and who's coming in, because what they do is every day the bus come and every day new people come in, and them new people, they would want to be a part of that. So they would come in and try to get affiliated with these people, and they'd be like, "Oh, well, since you a new dude, you got to show that you're willing to do this and this and this. So this dude over here, he did this and this, so you need to go over there and fight dude, blah blah blah." So I'd sit in the gym and just watch, and I knew when a new person come in that the chances are that week, the chances are at least 4 out of the 7, I'm going to have to fight those dudes, and I don't know. I mean, you fight as much as you can and you just keep fighting, and eventually they tried to put me in like PC and shit like that, like protective custody. But I wasn't going. I had grew up in these group homes my whole life, and I don't check in. I've never been a check in. I'll never be a check in. It's that simple. Now I can't control what happens with other things like when I was an adult and I was in jail and I was going through a lot of like things in that jail. I never ever wanted to be put by myself, but sometimes the county jail will force you. They'll do some shit called administrative sig. Like they'll say that even if you don't want SIG, they're gonna put you in SIG for your own safety. Shit like that. You know what I mean? Um, I had that happen to me one time through my whole life, and it was over Amber. And I'll let you know that story. That's a long one, but all right. So yeah, so Mountain View had to fight the rest of that time. I end up doing my time, my sentence. 9 months goes by. I get out, and when I get out, Heather's there, and she's bought me a ton of clothes and things like that. So when I got out, I had something, and I went to Mom's house and moved, in with her, and you know, I was out of the group homes finally. You know, it just went straight to the jails because I wasn't willing to, see that I had a problem and that, I was addicted to drugs, and I had been chasing that every day of not planning for tomorrow but living for today. And it got me nowhere. You know, now I'm 42 years old and, struggling to get by and just, staying clean, obviously, and staying away from drugs and them kind of people. And that's the moral. That's the thing. That's the things you should take from it is, you know, when you see people going through things like that, maybe give them a helping hand or, try to help them. But at the end of the day, nobody's going to help anybody until they can help themselves. And they're not going to help themselves until they see they have an issue and a problem, or they're not going to help themselves until they're ready. I was just ready, at 35, still being on probation. You know, I live in Utah now, and when I came to Utah, I went straight into trouble. I mean, ran straight from the police in the car. Uh, Stacked 2 felonies, doing hardly nothing really, driving vehicles. But I was driving those vehicles to go get drugs. I was driving those vehicles to run drugs back and forth. You know, I was doing bad things that had I not been doing those things, I wouldn't have gotten in trouble. But I couldn't put it down. I go to jail and then I get out. I promised myself I wasn't going to do it again. I wasn't going to do it again. And then I get out and I do it again. And man, it's something about it. It's like when you're in jail, it's so long. It's like a second, an hour. And especially when it gets down to like the last couple hours, it's forever. But it's like once you hit that air and that freedom, it goes right behind you. It's like you never even was there. It's gone. But for me, it's a lot different. See, 35 years is a long time to live with other homies all my life. To have roommates that are, to be trying to agree and mix in and try to mingle and maintain and keep things from breaking down and falling apart all the time, from watching my back and being on the run. And when I say I was on the run, I mean on the run like every day of my life, knowing that I have to keep my eyes on the back of my shoulder, and watch for the police, because if the police pull up, I know I got a warrant, so I got to run. So it was like that time was 35. That's a long time, to be running. But I haven't been running for almost 7 years now. And, it's amazing. So I'll see y'all guys later, and we'll start talking a little bit about the first time I really got in trouble and went to jail. And I did go to jail for 20 days for something really messed up that I should have never did, but I did because, of course, I was busy, trying to get that next level, numbing, forgetting, constant endorphin rising lifestyle type of deal. So I'll see y'all guys tomorrow, and we'll start in on on the jails. Have a good night, guys. Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a good night.
WillieGene talking, WillieGene squawking, WillieGene telling the deal. WillieGene mocking, WillieGene blocking, WillieGene keeping it real.